Every week we share something new, some way to be able to build your business. And many weeks, 272 weeks worth, we break down all of the different elements of our real estate investor blueprint. I know it's an eye chart from here, but if you take a look at it in the back, you'll be able to really get an idea of what this looks like for you as a real estate investor. And as we get going in the tip of the week, I am in the middle of a series of different tips, and I'm going to jump to where we are in this series just so you can follow along. If you're seeing us sort of what I'll call in the middle of one of our series, which this one is, if you are in that and you want to see the rest of those, then what I would recommend is for you to go ahead and check out our Texas RIA's Facebook page to be able to see what some of those other tips are. And I've got my screen a little wonky right now, so I don't see someone who might be able to help me with this, but let me just go back and see if I can get this all fixed up for you guys. Let me try this, and then let me try, all right, let me not try that, let me go back. All right, give me 2 seconds and I want to pull up the right screen for you guys. Here we go, and here we go. Okay, fantastic. I won't make you listen to the music again. But we're in a series right now where we're talking about marketing, where we're talking about deals, where we're talking about strategy, due diligence, negotiation. Today we're talking about closing. So this is about a 12-part series, and I'm adding to it every week. So if you want to kind of go back to the beginning of that, for those of you guys who are the YouTubers in the room, check it out on our YouTube channel. For podcasters, we've got that too. So love to be able to have you guys start from the beginning on this. But this week we're actually going through an overview of closing. And I'll start with this quote. Don't you hate people who quote themselves or talk in third person about their own quotes? I apologize, I'm going to do that right now. So I'll just say that closings should be effortless, right? It should be easy, but the truth is that truth is stranger than fiction, and never is that saying more true than for us as real estate investors. The things that we have to unscramble on the way to the closing table will shock and surprise even the most seasoned investors in the room, I can promise. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I'm literally every day I learn something new about real estate investing, and every closing something new comes up that did not come up previously in a prior closing. So the way that we like to describe it is that real estate is a mile wide and not necessarily a mile deep. So what you learned on deal number 1, you can't go back and say, all right, I'm going to use that over and over again on all of the rest of my deals. But what you learned on deal 1, you may not experience again until deal number 121, right? So that's the breadth of knowledge that you have to have as a real estate investor, and the breadth of issues challenges is a euphemism for what we encounter as real estate investors. But I want to go through what I'll call a typical process with you. So a typical process, the contract, earnest money, option money are sent to the title company, and the title company handles everything and then calls us when it's ready to close, right? The title company receipts all of the information and goes through a set of communication processes with the buyer and seller to be able to make sure that everyone is geared up for closing. They send out a title commitment to all of the parties that are involved. Title commitment might be 25 to 30, 40 pages long, depending on all the disclosures, depending on what's all on Schedule B, what's all on Schedule C, and then who all they're doing business with, which is on Schedule D. So that title commitment will talk about all the things that are covered in your title insurance policy. So these are the things that happen if something goes wrong. They'll also include a list of the things that they will exclude from their title coverage. So this only matters to you when it matters to you. So we have had situations where someone had the ownership of the property and sold it to us, and then we later found out that they did not own the property. Yeah, wow. And I'll go into this story in a little bit more detail because it is kind of a fascinating story. Mom and dad owned a property. Mom and dad passed away. and they did not have a will, so the property went to all of their 8 children. How easy do you think it is to get 8 people to get along, number one, and number two, agree on something? Not super great. So this property actually fell behind 10 years on property tax payments. Okay? So for those of you guys who are doing some of these tax lien strategies, it's kind of, it works in other states. It does not work here in Texas because you can be behind 5 years, 10 years, even longer in property taxes here in Texas. So if you're marketing to that list, you're going to have many gray hairs or many fewer hairs before one of those ships actually comes through. I hate to tell you that, but that's what it is. Anyway, so this family was trying to get the property refinanced to be able to pay off the taxes. They ended up deeding it to the sibling who had the highest credit score and also had a job. That sibling could not get the loan. That sibling had a niece, and he deeded it to the niece. And what's one of the requirements for a valid deed? A signature in front of who? In front of a notary. So we found out later that the niece had taken her uncle, right, one of these 7, 8 siblings here, to a police station in the middle of a hailstorm, okay, and walked in and said, "Do you see my uncle in the car over there? He's really not feeling bad, this hail, this rain, this wind. Would you mind if I had him sign it in the car and brought it back to you and you notarized it?" And the woman at the police station said, "Yeah, okay, sure." I did not hear this story until several weeks after I bought this property. Because after I bought the property, because it was filed in the courthouse records, and she came and she signed and she sold it to me. And then when I went over to go and pick up go into the house, there was someone living there who moved in. Yeah. As it turns out, it was one of the other 7 siblings. And they said, "Nope, you don't own this house because that person who sold it to you did not actually own it herself." Well, what are you talking about? Well, she got my brother to be able to sign it, but it was a false signature. It was her signature, not his. So we're finding all this out after we've closed on this property. And this is when you say, well, what is title policy again? What does title insurance mean? And that's when you get super curious about learning about this sort of stuff, right? That's when curiosity is really kicks in and really want to find this out. And in this particular case, so we went to the title company and we just said, "Hey, this looks like super complex, okay? Just give me my money back because that's what you're supposed to do, right?" And what do you think the title company said? They said no. Why do you think they said no? "Oh, well, we have to. We are title in partnership." This is when it's "No, I want a divorce from you," right? So it's we have to fight for this together. And in this particular case, we actually reinstated the loan and bought it subject to the existing financing because the loan was about to go into foreclosure because she wasn't paying on it because she wasn't living in it. None of the other siblings were paying either. And so as we're trying to figure this out, as it turns out, the uncle who had deeded it over to her had died. So we found, and we were not aware. This is another thing we were not aware of. She didn't tell us. And we told the title company, we don't care if we win or lose. We just want to win or lose as quickly as possible. Because if it strings out for 2 years, which is what they were projecting in this particular case, I would have to continue to make what? Payments. And what does title insurance actually cover? Only what you brought to the closing table. It does not cover anything that you pay after this lawsuit starts. And could I get possession of this property? No, because someone else had moved in there. Okay? So again, I didn't care if I won. I didn't care if I lost. I just wanted to win or lose as quickly as possible. So we looked at the documents. They looked forged. They did not look like we collected his signatures. It did not look like his signature. And so we told the title company, this looks pretty forged. And they're like, well, you can't say that. What do you mean I can't say that? You mean I can't say the truth? Well, no, the only way that title insurance is going to pay off is if we are working together on this, right? Yeah. So my husband's like, well, you can't ask me to lie, can you? And it's like, I'm not a signature expert, but these look pretty different to me. So we went back and forth. We use a carrot and a stick. What do you think we use as a carrot and what do you think we use as a stick? This is a long story. What do you think we use as a carrot and what do you think we use as a stick? Cash for keys? That's exactly what we did. Unfortunately, we had a bunch of deadbeat people that were part of this situation. One was in prison, which is easy. You're going to have people who are in prison you're going to buy houses from. The notary comes to the jail, at least once a week, so you can get that done. One was literally like on the lam running from the police. That one was a little tougher to be able to get his release on this property. But we almost did not come to an agreement on this because they couldn't decide who was going to get the $10,000 that we were going to put up. Okay? And in this particular case, because we bought it subject to, we thought it's in our best interest to put a little pressure on the situation. So the carrot was the $10K. The pressure that we put on the situation was we stopped making payments. Because again, what does title insurance cover? Only what you originally brought to the closing table. It doesn't cover all of your payments after that. Okay. Well, again, whether you win or lose, if you lose, you lose all of the equity that you built up. If you win, you just didn't have control of that property for the last 2 years, which is what they estimated. So in this particular case, and they were telling us, we're going to sue you. It's like, well, great, you can sue us, but at some point we're not going to own the property anymore because the bank's going to go back and foreclose on it. So literally, with all of this back and forth, within like days of it going back to foreclosure, which is what we saved it from when we bought it, they miraculously figured out how to divide those proceeds. Okay, they miraculously figured out how to divide those proceeds. Now, this deal did not get done. They wanted us to just give them the money, and then they would all sign the release. And we said, we're not going to do that until this lady, who's a little cuckoo, is out of the house. Let me define cuckoo for you. Did not have the means to move into a new place, was not working, did not have a car, wasn't going to pack up anything in the house. We bought her moving supplies, boxes, tape, moving wrappers, right? We rented her a U-Haul truck. We bought her a lock to put on the U-Haul truck so she could move at her leisure, okay? She would follow us. We kind of looked out as we drive by it every day to see, are they moving or not? Because we didn't know how this deal was going to go down. And one day, she got used to kind of seeing our car at this point, just kind of peering in at her. And she kind of ran down the street and chased us down. And she comes up to the car. Oh, yes. Drunk as a skunk. And you know what she asked us for? Well, she needed the keys to the U-Haul because she had to go somewhere. It was a laughable moment. I mean, there were so many of these, and the story goes in another 50 directions, which would take us a lot longer to be here for. But this is why, my friends, we buy title insurance. And this is some of the truth is stranger than fiction, but never is that saying more true than when it comes to real estate investing. This is some of the things that and this is something that we experienced. And literally, I think it was our first year of investing in real estate. We bought a house for somebody who forged the deed, okay? This will happen to at least one of you in this room here probably in the next year because this sort of stuff does happen, and this is why we close at a title company and figure out all of those things that need to be resolved. So what are some of those other things that might need to be resolved other than someone forging the deed? Liens and judgments. So these could be first liens, second liens, IRS liens, HUD liens. What's super popular right now? What are people doing right now who have been on COVID relief programs? What are they doing? They're doing modifications like crazy. And then they get something called seller amnesia. What does that mean? They forget that they did a loan modification because they're not making payments on it, and you don't find it out until when? The title company finds it, right? And says, oh, there's another $80,000 on here. You will be paying that off at the time of closing, right? And what does that cause us to do? Maybe have to renegotiate, maybe have to do a short sale, maybe something else. So these are some of the different things that they find. HOA liens, tax liens, credit card liens, judgments, MOCs. What's an MOC, my friends? A memorandum of contract. Who files those? Investors. Why do investors file those? Because sellers are flaky, squirrely, right? And sellers don't understand that they can only sell their property to how many people? That would be one. That would be one. So what does that mean that they oftentimes do? Sell it to you and then sell it to the next person who offers them $1,000 more. So we as savvy real estate investors, we file these things called memorandum of contracts. That way, when the seller ghosts you, is not talking to you, is not answering your calls, texts, phones, emails, door knocks, etc., they're going to have to deal with you, but it's only going to be after they go to their new buyer's title company, and their new buyer's title company finds what? You. Okay, so these are some of the things that we've put on properties ourselves and been paid off by sellers and or the seller's buyers. And these are things that other investors have put on before we got there as well. So this is something that you deal with as real estate investors all the time. Probate issues, heirship, divorce, bankruptcy, quitclaim deeds. What do we know about quitclaim deeds in Texas? They don't count. They don't count. And this is why I worry about people who are getting their information from out-of-state folks, because in other states, guess what works really well? Quitclaim deeds. But they won't survive a title commitment. They won't give you title insurance if you just use a quitclaim deed, unless the quitclaim deed was filed after September 1st of 2022 and has been on file for at least 4 years. Based on the math I'm doing, we got another year before those quitclaim deeds can be usable, but at some point they will be much more usable than they are today. But each one of these quitclaim deeds, you got to wait 4 years. If you have a quitclaim deed in the chain of title, what are you now going to have to go back and do as a real estate investor? Go find the person who gave the quitclaim deed to whoever you're dealing with and ask them to sign what? A general warranty deed, right, which does convey ownership, and that ownership can be conveyed with title insurance. So some of those will come up often. Expired driver's license. So please know this. The things that you got in this business to do, which I know for me, I got in this business to buy, fix, and flip houses. My friends, these are only the things that you get to do after you do everything else on this planet Earth that you had no idea that you were going to have to do. That includes moving people. That includes renting U-Hauls for people, getting boxes for people, renting other apartments for them. It also includes helping them get their driver's licenses renewed, okay? Because you have to have a valid driver's license to be able to close. You know, it's so funny, like whenever I hear politicians say like, you know, well, we need to protect the voters and they need to be able to vote whether or not they have a driver's license. Like in my mind, I'm like, who in the heck doesn't have a driver's license? Well, as it turns out, everyone that I try and freaking close a real estate transaction with, that's who doesn't have a driver's license. So you're going to have to do what as a real estate investor? Go take them there, go help them get one, right? And then that's the only way that you're going to be able to close on that deal. So beware of those things happen. Common names. Any John Smiths in the room? I have done a deal buying a house from John Smith or Jose Gonzalez. Guess what? How many liens, judgments, divorces, and horses are on all these people? Thousands. So you have to do basically what's called an affidavit of all of those liens, judgments, etc. are not me. So you have to do that in advance as well. Parties out of the country and or in jail, we can handle that. They can go to the embassy. We had one party who was recently in Canada who was a U.S. citizen, was going to take them 2 days in travel to go from their very remote part of Canada to a U.S. embassy. But guess what? There was $60,000 in this deal. Is that enough, ma'am, for you to, yeah, okay, I'm getting out of bed for that too. In fact, I'm sending a mobile notary to where? Oh, it's full on mobile. It's like, you're going to Canada. I'm paying you. I will pay you good money because why? It's worth it. And this, what did the owner say? She was an heir, right? And she wasn't going to get anything. She didn't really care. But did I care? I cared hugely. So again, I didn't get in this business to send mobile notaries to frickin' Canada, right? But these are some of the things that we have to do in order to be able to tap into the equity that's there, that some people just won't go that extra mile. Co-owners that won't initially sign, parties that sign and later don't decide to sign. These are all the things that you can encounter as a real estate investor. When it comes to closing, liens and judgments, you can pay them in full. You can negotiate them off. You can get a partial release of lien. You can take them subject to. What does partial release of lien mean? What does that mean? Many liens stick to the owner as well as the property. A lien holder can remove the lien from the property and still continue to attach it to the owner. Is this a way for us to not have to pay off someone's debt? Yes. Do we do this all the time? Do creative title companies and creative real estate investors have to do this all the time because it's the only way to be able to unlock these deals? And the answer is yes. So after you get all of these crazy things that you did not see in the initial real estate investor playbook resolved, then you can get things moving over to the closing. So if there's something that's on Schedule C, you can move those to Schedule B and take those subject to. Buyers, in some cases, may elect to close without title insurance. This is probably one of the most dangerous and stupid things that you can do as a real estate investor. After 20 years, literally, I can count the number of tabletop closings that I've done on one hand. I don't recommend it. It'll give you like a lot of stress and anxiety. So don't do that. Please close with a title company in every case, and please close with title insurance. Because if you don't close with title insurance and something later comes up, are you going to be able to sell that property to someone else with title insurance? No, right? And title insurance is the gold standard. So, and if you have this situation, you're going to have to go out and fix that thing that you let go on to the next closing later on. So make sure you know what that looks like. All parties who are ownership must sign. Texas is what kind of a state when it comes to property? Community property state. That means if, sir, you owned a house and the deed was in your name, the ownership was in your name, the note was in your name, and then you later found a woman who looked about your age and decided to marry her, right? And then I was later coming in and buying that property from you. If you two lived there as man and wife, even though she's not on the note and she's not on the deed, I'd still have to get her to sign. And even if she didn't, I would probably have to get her to sign. Let's say you just held it as a rental property. If there was any commingling of funds, right? If she paid any of the mortgage payments, if she did any of the work on it, then what is she now entitled to? That property. So we've got to get her signature on it as well. Mobile notaries, mobile closings are acceptable. I've done it in church parking lots with that didn't sound good. I've closed houses in church parking lots with mobile notaries. That sounds much better. Money must be received in time to fund the deal. So wires sometimes get a little tricky. If you misplace one number, it could hang up that wire for a day or more. So make sure you get those in. Cashier's check, because of all the fraud in many cases for many title companies, is completely a thing of the past. So I don't think you're going to do that unless you have that at the title company way in advance. If something cannot be resolved, one of the tricks that we use as a real estate investor to be able to stop an auction is what? How do we stop an auction? Temporary restraining order or a bankruptcy. Temporary restraining order, some of you guys may be saying, oh, I thought that was just for my ex-girlfriend. No, or ex-boyfriend. No, that's not the case. It can also be someone else who's threatening you, right? Which might be a bank who's trying to foreclose on you. So know that that's an option. Bankruptcy is an option too. And Again, you can take the deed. The deed's just a 2-page document. You can do a kitchen table closing if you want to, but just know that that is incredibly risky, and know you may have to deal with some of those issues as they come up. And if you can't get it done, you could terminate the contract. That to me is a little bit like defeat. I'm going to find something creative to be able to do. I'm going to use a carrot. I'm going to use a stick. I'm going to use all of the different strategies that I've learned as a real estate investor. Now, as all these issues are signed by the buyer and seller, get that wire there on time, get that valid ID, so it cannot be an expired ID or passport to be able to get them to closing. And at the time of closing, all of the deeds transfer to the new buyer. That's one of the last documents that the seller signs. You had a question. Is it Raphael? Yeah. Yeah, so the team that's going to work with you. So a lot of you guys will close at a title company. You really need to be going to close at especially for what we do as real estate investors, where there's a lot of eggs to unscramble. You really need to be going to a fee office, which is really more of an attorney-driven office, where an attorney-driven office, they can take off their title company hat and put on their "I'm an attorney and you need to do these things, otherwise you're going to get sued now" hat. So I prefer the fee offices just because I know they're going to take care of me, not if something comes up, but when something comes up. If you're just at a regular title company and something comes up, usually they're going to say, "Oh, we can't wait to give you the best customer service you've ever had. As soon as you just figure out all this other stuff, we'll be here and ready to close." Right? It's like, no, I don't need that title office. I need the title office that's going to dig in and help me resolve that problem. So that's what you want to look for. That's a good question. So if you guys, was this an okay tip and trick? I know we went off on a little rabbit hole of false deeds and all that other stuff, but was this helpful to you guys? And some of you guys may have been like, well, that's way out here. Like, I'm not seeing this yet. I'm just speaking into your future deal. So guys, we have a lot of other prior tips and tricks. We do this every week. And again, we are on part 7 of a overview of real estate investing, talking about closing. Next week, we'll bring you a new topic that kind of follows along in this strategy. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to our Texas REIA's YouTube channel or our podcasts or any of the socials, and you'll be able to binge watch and become the real estate expert. What you will like about our tips and tricks is that we are Texans investing in Texas using strategies that actually work in Texas, as opposed to maybe some of the other YouTube folks you might be following who strategy may not work in Texas, because we do things a little bit different here. So love to have you guys join us on our Texas REIA's YouTube channel.